Hello and welcome to an overview of Maine's Enhanced Person-Centered Planning Process Part 2. I am Kristen Fortier, the Community Case Management Manager for the Office of Aging and Disability Services. This training has been tailored to case managers supporting adults with intellectual, developmental disabilities, and autism here in Maine, including those who utilize Section 13 Targeted Case Management Services and Sections 21 and 29 waiver services. Today's webinar is part 2 of a final training in advance of the rollout of an updated PCP process in EIS starting on June 1st. Today, we will focus on the nuts and bolts of this updated person-centered planning process in EIS. We recommend, if you have not yet had the opportunity to view an Introduction to Charting a Life course, Open Futures Learning, the Person-Centered Approaches Thinking and Planning module, or part 1 of today's training on Maine's Enhanced Person-Centered Planning Process, that you do so before you begin part 2 today. All 3 person-centered planning trainings and related resources can be accessed on the OADS website under Person-Centered Planning. Our learning objective today is to become familiar with how the updated PCP process will look in EIS beginning on June 1st, 2022. Before we walk through the PCP process beginning on June 1st, please know that all current and approved plans will continue to be active until the next effective plan date, assuming no changes are requested or needed. All current PCP forms or plans open for annual planning will not lock down or gray out on June 1st, as you've experienced last fall. For annual plans you are working on with an effective plan date up until September 1st, 2022, you can finalize the planning process as you typically would. So what is new? Beginning on June 1st, you will use the updated DS person-centered planning process in EIS as you start annual planning. You will also use the updated DS PCP process as you develop any initial 30-day person-centered plans. Let's walk through what you will do in EIS after June 1st, when you begin an annual plan using the updated DS person-centered planning process. First, anchor on your person as you typically would. Then click Processes in the left-hand navigation bar. Note here, you will not be clicking on assessments as you are accustomed to doing. So just to reiterate, you will be clicking Processes in the left-hand navigation bar. Next, you will add the DS person-centered planning process by clicking Add. Then enter a name for the DS person-centered planning process. You will be adding a DS PCP process for each person you support only once. So we suggest the name be Person-Centered Planning Process. Then add a start date. The start date is the date you are adding the process. You may note a timestamp on this screenshot. All timestamps will be removed by the time we go live on June 1st. When you are finished, click Next. Here, you will see the DS Person-Centered Planning Process version 1. Go ahead and select it and click Next. And finally, click Finish. You have added the DS Person-Centered Planning Process. Here is what you will see once the PCP process is added. It includes 4 steps. We will walk through all 4 steps together. You will click on the blue hyperlink to navigate to each step. Step 1 involves updating the DS psychosocial assessment. Click on the blue hyperlink for step 1. Step 1 is an informational step. It is a reminder that an assessment identifies the preferences and functional needs of a person and helps to inform the person-centered plan. The DS psychosocial assessment must be completed within 30 days of the start date of case management services, as a change in the person needs warrants, and at least annually. To complete the DS psychosocial assessment, follow the instructions. Locate the most current DS psychosocial assessment where you typically would under assessments. Reversion and update the DS psychosocial assessment with information you have learned about the person throughout the year using person-centered thinking. When finished, you'll return to this DS person-centered planning process step 1 and enter the start date, completed date, and click Save and Close. Of note here, the start date and completed date cannot overlap. Step 2 involves adding the person-centered plan. Click on the blue hyperlink for step 2. Step 2 explains the actions to add or update, reversioning, a person-centered plan. The first time you use the PCP process after June 1st, you will be adding the updated person-centered plan by clicking Add at the bottom right of the screen. Please note, before you can add the DS person-centered plan, you will need to click Save. Here, you will enter the start date and click Next. Since you are developing an annual plan, the start date matches the next effective plan date. If you are completing an initial 30-day plan, the start date here would be the date you are entering the information. Finally, select DS Person-Centered Plan version 1 and click Finish. You have now created a PCP within the new PCP process. You will know you have created the person-centered plan because it will now display within step 2 at the bottom under Assessments. To fill out the PCP, you will select the blue Assessment ID hyperlink at the bottom left. Enter a description and click Save. For example, enter Annual Plan. Choose Questionnaire from the Show menu and proceed to complete each dimension of the DS Person-Centered Plan, starting with the Personal Plan face sheet. Once you are done each dimension, click Save and move on to the next dimension from the drop-down menu. Complete each of the applicable PCP dimensions, including About Me, which we now know is the personal profile, Getting the Life I Want, My Goals, My Case Management Services, etc. The updated PCP has 3 plan types identified on the face sheet. The plan types include Annual, Initial, and Change. As you begin annual planning after June 1st, you will select Plan Type Annual. If you are completing an initial 30-day plan, you will select Plan Type Initial. We will discuss plan type change further along in the presentation. If the person you are supporting is not receiving waiver services, you will finalize the PCP on the personal plan face sheet. You will do this by completing the person survey, plan approval, and enter signature dates. Click Save when you are complete. Step 3 and Step 4 in the PCP process only occur if a person is receiving waiver services. Once a person has chosen a service provider, the case manager will notify each waiver service provider to complete a service implementation plan in Step 3 of the PCP process in EIS. Providers will have view access only to the PCP, and they'll use the information from the PCP to develop a proposed service implementation plan. Each waiver service provider will add a service implementation plan by clicking Add in the lower right-hand corner under Assessments. Once a waiver service provider has completed the proposed service implementation plan, or SIP, the case manager accesses the SIP within Step 3 to review with the person and guardian if applicable. Step 4 is for informational purposes only. This step occurs only if a person is receiving waiver services. Step 4 directs the case manager back to the PCP in Step 2 to capture the person's approval of the service implementation plan or plans. If a SIP is completed prior to the PCP effective plan date, click on the questionnaire in the Show menu to get to the personal plan face sheet in the Open PCP. On the face sheet, check My Plan includes a service implementation plan. Review and complete the SIP survey questions. The SIP survey questions include, I got to choose the providers in my plan, yes or no, and I am in agreement with the service implementation plan or plans attached to my plan, yes or no. Finalize by entering the approval signature dates and checking the case manager attestation. Once you are finished, click Save. At times, selection of a waiver service provider and development of a service implementation plan will occur after the PCP effective plan date. In that case, the case manager will go back to the PCP in Step 2 and reversion the PCP to update the face sheet. The start date of the new version is the date that you reversion to complete the update. Click OK. Update the PCP plan type on the face sheet to indicate change. Select Change Reason, Add, or Change in Service Implementation Plan. Then you'll finalize the PCP by going to the face sheet and indicating under Person Guardian Plan Approved that my PCP includes a service implementation plan, complete the SIP survey questions with the person, enter approval and signature dates, and check the case manager attestation. Next, we'll talk about 90-day reviews and the updated PCP process. If you reflect back to part 1 of this training, remember that 90-day reviews will now be conducted within the PCP itself. After you use the updated PCP process for the first time, you will no longer use the Services and Supports Assessment version 7 to provide updates every 90 days. Maine Care requires a reevaluation of the plan to be completed as a change in the member's needs occur, or at a minimum of every 90 days. As part of meeting this requirement, you as the case manager will connect with the person and guardian as applicable and other planning team members in the person's circle of support and document feedback regarding progress on goals, and the possible need to change or even add a goal. Reflect on the progress the person has made on each key step. And if no progress is happening, have a conversation and explore with the person. What can we be doing differently as a team? Also, the 90-day review will consider any change in need or change in unmet need. We'll consider the development of natural supports and community membership, and also the person's satisfaction with activities, paid supports, services, as well as settings and the providers that are supporting them. You will also connect with the waiver service providers to gather in writing or by phone the person's progress in accomplishing goals and implementing service implementation plan. As you are connecting with a person to complete the 90-day review, remember to ask, do services and supports help the person move in the direction of their goals and the vision for their good life? When do you complete a 90-day review? The effective plan date determines the date of each 90-day review, whether that be the 90-day, the 180, the 270, etc. Each review should occur on or before 90 days. When a 90-day review falls within 14 calendar days prior to the effective plan date of the annual plan, completing that annual plan may function as the 90-day review. However, when a 90-day review is due more than 14 calendar days from the next date of the annual plan, a separate 90-day review must be completed. How do you complete a 90-day review in the PCP? Under step 2, go to the PCP with no end date. Click on the blue hyperlink under Assessment ID and then reversion the PCP. Enter in the description box 90-day review or 180-day review, etc. as applicable. Update the phase sheet to reflect the plan type change and the change reason of 90-day goal review. When conducting a 90-day review and no changes to the plan are needed, signatures are not required. A 90-day goal review is completed within each My Goal dimension where the person has an identified goal in their PCP. Update the goal status if applicable. For example, you may change a new goal to a goal that is now in process. Provide a summary of the progress related to that goal in the applicable summary of progress. Through conversations with the person and their guardian, if applicable, you may identify that an update to the PCP is required at the time of the 90-day review. For example, the person you're working with may wish to add community membership as a new service. In that case, you would update the phase sheet to reflect plan type change and multi-select the change reasons of both a 90-day goal review and add change in service and support. Anytime you are updating the plan at the request of the person and/or guardian and selecting a change reason in addition to 90-day goal review, the person guardian plan approval and signatures are required. Finally, today, we will review what to do if updates or changes are needed to a PCP after June 1st. There are two options. OADS recommends option 1 for routine requests for updates to the PCP. Option 1 involves using the updated PCP process in EIS. In option 1, the case manager will go to processes in the left-hand navigation bar, add the DS person-centered planning process. Next, they will add a DS person-centered plan in step 2 of the process. Transfer relevant information from the current PCP under assessments into the updated DS person-centered plan. And then finally, the case manager will capture the requested updates or changes to the person's PCP. Under option 1, the provider will add and complete a DS service implementation plan within the new updated DS person-centered planning process, step 3. Option 2 involves reversioning the PCP in assessments. Option 2 is available when acute or time-sensitive updates or changes are needed to a PCP after June 1st. Option 2 again involves reversioning the current PCP under assessments as you typically would for a change, but requires the following new actions to be completed. As the case manager, you will add to the applicable Maine Care Service Description form. I know you are not accustomed to touching these pages of the PCP, but if you elect to do option 2, you will be going forward. So add to the applicable Maine Care Service Description form the service provider name. You will identify the type of service, including hours per week, if applicable, and the proposed change or start date for the service. Then you will select the areas of support needed. The areas of support needed have a drop-down list from A through F. You will select the applicable level of support needed. You will not need to select the purpose of support or complete either of the service planning narratives. As the case manager, you will also fill out the goal description page for the applicable waiver service in order to capture any goals that the person may have identified that they wish to receive support from that provider and that service. In option 2, the waiver service provider adds a DS service implementation plan under assessments, not processes, based on view-only access to the updates to the person-centered plan. And then finally, the case manager reviews the completed service implementation plan with the person and guardian, if applicable, and if accepted, identifies the SIP ID in the PCP description box. The case manager finalizes the plan by obtaining signatures. This concludes today's overview of the nuts and bolts of the updated PCP process in EIS beginning on June 1st. Your feedback is important to us. Please direct your questions and ideas to personcenteredplanning.dhhs@maine.gov. Thank you.